Welcome to the Women of Kriya Yoga Living in Joy podcast, a gathering place for women walking the spiritual path. Here we share stories, teachings, and reflections rooted in the timeless practices of Kriya Yoga. These conversations are an offering from the Women's Ministry of Kriya Yoga International, inviting you to rest in stillness, awaken your inner light, and connect with a community of women to support one another in living in joy. Our host is Mary Dale Ma, a devoted disciple of Paramahamsa Yogananda, whose boundless love guided her to the feet of her beloved Guruji, Paramahamsa Yogananda, within the sacred lineage of the Kriya Yoga International Masters. A seasoned yoga teacher and mentor for more than 40 years, she's trained in the Yogacharya tradition and founded the Param Yoga Healing Arts Center in California. Through her teaching and mentorship, Mary Dale supports seekers in awakening their highest potential and cultivating love, compassion, and equanimity through consistent practice. In this episode, we are talking with Yogacharya Lucy O'Brien. Lucy Ma met Shri Gurudev Paramahamsa Hariharananda-ji in her home community of Santa Barbara, California in 1986. The blessing of initiation in that relationship transformed her life. She served Kriya Yoga International as a center leader and West Coast regional coordinator before accepting a role as Yogacharya. As a lifelong learner, she turned her attention to Eastern teachings after reading the Autobiography of a Yogi at a young age, and considers herself under the flag of Paramahamsa Yogananda ever since. She worked as a bookkeeper, serving in the nonprofit community until her retirement. She has had a very active retirement, sharing her passion for the benefits of developing a personal meditation practice. Other activities include studying scripture, cooking, gardening, and spending time wrangling her 2 young grandsons.
Om, 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 and welcome to the Women of Kriya Yoga Living in Joy podcast. I'm your host, Mary Dale, and this podcast was created to honor the voices and the journeys of women walking the sacred path of Kriya Yoga. Each episode, I'll be joined by an inspiring guest who will share her story, her challenges, blessings, and practices, and her wisdom. Together, we'll explore how the teachings of Kriya Yoga guide us to live with greater love, equanimity, and joy in our daily lives. Whether you are new to the path or have been practicing for years, these conversations are here to uplift your heart and support your spiritual journey. Thank you for joining us on this day of the rest of your life. And as we celebrate the light of the women on the path of Kriya Yoga together, hopefully this will be a path of discovery and what it means to truly live in joy. And now, before I introduce our wonderful guest for today, let's take a moment to just settle into this space. I know it took you a lot of effort to arrive here, and now your loving attendance is required. In this way, you'll be able to truly take in the gift of the moment. So please ensure that your phone is silenced and that you will not be disturbed for the next few minutes. Let us sit comfortably and begin to take your attention to the sweetness of your breath. Gently close your eyes and move into a state of calm. Father, Mother, beloved Lord, our divine Gurudev Paramahamsa Hariharananda, our beloved Guruji Paramahamsa Prajnanananda, and our Param Guru, Paramahamsa Yogananda, along with all of the great masters of our Kriya Yoga lineage and beyond. We bow at your feet on this day with hearts filled with thanksgiving for this auspicious opportunity to draw forth women from all corners of the planet to celebrate the feminine and to uplift one another through our stories, through our sincerity, through our love, through our devotion, and mostly through your grace. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this privilege. Bowing at your feet with endless love. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Amen. Wonderful. And with that, I would like to acknowledge that it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce to you our guest, Lucy O'Brien, who happens to also be my dear friend. I've known Lucy for 14 plus years now, and it's been a wonderful journey to get to know her. Lucy, we've had the privilege of listening to your biography, and it's so rich with your story of a longtime devotee of Kriya Yoga. And we thank you for agreeing on short notice to share this moment with us. I know it wasn't easy. However, today we'd like to focus on exploring your journey on your Kriya path. And that's going to help all of us to live in joy. So if you don't mind, Lucy, could we start by perhaps asking you a little bit about your early life and what drew you to the spiritual path?
I'd love to share that. And it's so beautiful to share with all of you. So I'm happy to do this conversation and have this conversation with you. I feel that I came by the spiritual path quite naturally. I was born into a nice Lutheran family, and we went to church every Sunday and sang. We had the pew that we all sat and sang in, and my dad was especially beautiful singing all the Lutheran hymns. And so there was always a sense of that God was around and the Spirit was around of some sort. We weren't too, strong. We're just a good middle of the road Christians. And so that suited me really well and suited everybody. Good practices and values. And so everything was sort of in place. And I didn't have to rebel or seek very far to find a good base, a good, start.
Well, that's a real blessing, Lucy Ma. And I'm assuming then that your faith was anchored in the Lord Jesus Christ. Is that true?
Yes. I think almost practices and values. I didn't necessarily, I sang the Jesus songs, but I did not have your experience of early Christ experience. And so more, it was kind of practices and values. I asked my mom once what we believed in and what was our religion. And she said faith by works. And so she was a registered nurse, a public health nurse, and it was all about service. And so when I came to Kriya, service was very much a part of my spiritual life. And I had been told by my mom that that's what our belief is, that faith through works. And miraculously, when I found Kriya, it just folded right into that, because Kriya means the soul in action, or God in action and in our activities. So it fit right in, and it's not a surprise that one fell toward the other. They really did work out. They came together.
Well, it sounds like you had a very wise woman as your mother, as your feminine mentor from an early age. And certainly hands, hearts, and head are all part of our path. So that was a real blessing. Now, is there any defining moment that you can think of that set you on the path toward Kriya?
Absolutely. So from that kind of, I call it kind of middle of the road Christian. At one point, I was, when I was in college, there was a festival. I was in Boulder, Colorado, and they called it the Holy Man Jam back in the 60s. It was, so it was fun, and a lot of teachers came, and I went to the talks, and I heard about reincarnation for the first time. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is great. Why didn't anybody tell me this? And so once I found that there was a different door than what I had been taught, I went straight for it. And for one, thinking, what don't I know? When you learn, there's something you don't know. So there's much more to that. And then something as basic as reincarnation just rang like a bell to me. And I thought, I need to learn about this. So then I started studying the Eastern religions and found they were much more accessible. The Vedas tell you very clearly, how to live, what values, what practices, just kind of this thing. Different than the Bible, even Jesus' teachings are the same, but he teaches in metaphor more and in kind of, not secretly, but, you have to kind of wade into it, where the Vedas and the Hindu texts will just tell you, here's a list of how you should be, and it's much more clear and easy to work with. And so I've resonated with this path and found from that point forward, there was a journey, though, to find Kriya and to find my master, Hariharananda. So as it's kind of like the unfolding of the path, which I think as women and as people, that's how it works. You go a little bit and then you learn a little bit more, or maybe you have a setback and then you come a little bit farther forward. The setbacks were good for me, good or bad, but it drove me then actively to moving forward on the spiritual path, because I would find myself in some kind of problem or difficulty, or a divorce or something dramatic, and I would then really want some spiritual community or spiritual guidance. And then I would look harder and find new ways.
Well, you certainly shared a lot of wisdom just now, which I hope women are really hearing, that the path is not straight. It kind of winds around and has detours and bumps in the road and so on and so forth. And so we have to be very pragmatic about the journey and not give up. As Yogananda told us, we've got to have a destination in mind and then just keep to the path. And you certainly have done that. And I know one of the things that I've been so touched by, because I believe in the 6 degrees of separation. And since you were so close with a one-on-one relationship with our beloved Gurudev Hariharananda, I feel that when I touch you, part of me is touching him, because you had such a sweet rapport with Gurudev. Would you mind sharing how you met him and how he changed your life and kind of solidified you moving forward in Kriya?
Yeah, I'd love to tell that story. I learned about Kriya Yoga through Autobiography of a Yogi, that many people have their first initiation or contact with Kriya. And so I came through that track and was in one of my periods where I was really begging for something more. I wasn't really actively studying the Yogananda's teachings, but I knew I wanted more Kriya, and prayed and begged about it. And then kind of randomly, my work took me to, I was, I'll just tell the story. I was working at a bakery as a bookkeeper, and the delivery person didn't come in that day. So would I go please deliver the muffins? And so I went to a part of town I never go to a bakery I never, to a coffee shop I never go to. And right there on the sign on the door was this huge sign saying that learn Kriya Yoga, and all of the lineage of masters was right there on the poster. I was astounded. I thought, how could this be? How is this possible that something could be just dropped in like this on me? And it was. So I went to the talk and then learned Kriya. And then a few weeks later, Gurudev was in San Francisco. So I went up to San Francisco to meet him. And he did a little more initiating, kind of thing. He worked with me some more. But it was just so beautiful. And he was so loving and patient And for me, it was life-changing because I had that sense of it was meant to be, synchronicity. There was something that was meant to be. I was not always had full faith that this was the answer, but I was begging, and how was I to know? I had a lot of doubt. So how was I to know whether this was true or false? How do you know until you try it? You have to just dive in and see if this is really the answer that you are looking for. So I did that. And at first I started practicing the techniques, and I had an initial weekend with Gurudev. And so I learned the techniques from him and actually started practicing. And then my later encounters were with him later than that. But what I did was I practiced the techniques, and with faith, with full faith, and just because I don't know if this is true or false. And they worked amazingly right away.
What do you mean by that they worked?
Just I couldn't concentrate. So these practices are about concentration. And we practice concentrating in the top of the head, in fontanelle, and in our various chakras. So I would sit and I would practice concentrating, which is completely different than my real life. And very quickly, I think within a matter of weeks and months, I developed this concentration and my whole mind settled down, and I started having a sense of happiness and joy again. And there was some peace, which I didn't have before when my mind was going in this continuous, these loops, these crazy loops. So for me, and one thing when I'm preparing for this, a very important piece is that you get with the practice that works for you and stick with it. And that's what I've done. And that's what Hariharananda teaches, that you stick with whatever you're doing. And this worked for me. And I was actually afraid to not meditate because the change in me, the way my brain fired, was so different and so dramatic that I thought if I stop, I'm going to go backwards. So I had an extreme motivation to keep meditating. And then, so when I think very quickly, it changed me. Within 6 months, my anger had subsided and dramatic changes had happened. And it was just by practicing these techniques on a regular basis.
Oh, what a gift. What a gift. Now, Ma, can you share with us, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but approximately how old were you when you found Kriya?
I was, I think, 34.
So a young woman.
Yeah, who had I'd had a divorce, I'd moved, I had a son, so I was a single mom, and building a life in a new city in California. I moved from New Mexico to California with my son. And so I had a lot of challenges that I was going to make it. Part of my early story is that the town, a little Illinois town I was born in, it was named Streeter, but the first settlers that came there called the town Hardscrabble. And that was what my life was like for a really long time. And I don't say it's still perfectly smooth, but that Hardscrabble piece we put aside, Kriya Yoga and as well as the techniques, which for me, there was the link with the masters, but even more was that I needed the technique to learn to concentrate and to change my brain. And I know that the masters were doing it, but my focus wasn't on the masters. Part of our practice is you pray to the masters every day and remember them and bring them into your body and yourself and into your soul. So it's not as if I wasn't thinking of them or remembering them, but the shift was I think the on the outward side, that the technique was powerful enough to do it on its own. And then I met and spent more time with Hariharananda. So we'll get back to the original question. And he was always completely loving and sweet. He was the most humble teacher, man, person, saint that you would want to be around. And if you see pictures of him, I just love the way his mouth, if you notice his mouth, it is so sweet and ready to smile or ready to give something. He's just the most giving heart. And he, would scold us as well. He wasn't, he was a teacher, and he was the father, and he was the grandfather, and he knew what he wanted, and he had old-fashioned ways. He was a Hindu Brahmin who was born in like 1906, I believe. So, and by now it was 86, I think, when I took initiation. So it was different times, but he was always very patient and loving with us, and would be very clear about what he wanted. If you came in with really long hair and a big ego, he would send you out. He would say, no, you come back once you cut your hair. And it wasn't just hair, it's the ego that went with it, type of thing.
What a blessing that was for you to have had him show up the way he did in your life. I believe there are no mistakes, and everything is in God's timing. So as you went through this path of Kriya, were there any difficulties for you over the last 40 plus years in Kriya, particularly perhaps as a woman?
Thinking of that, I would say not necessarily as a woman. What's beautiful about this path and this organization is that it really isn't designed just for men or just for women. And Hariharananda had women teachers, and about the same time that I came in, there was a lovely monk. We had our first woman monk from Europe, and she was made a monk. And there were women acharyas at that time as well. So yes, there were more men, but there was a path for women, and you could find women to speak with and to kind of find solidarity, that we were have answer questions, or it to me, it never felt like it was a man's world, Kriya Yoga. And that's always been very positive and important to me. Very clean behaviors. We haven't had any scandals, crazy scandals. So it's a very safe place for women to study and learn. And because, back to kind of the traditional ways of Hariharananda, we dress in a very modest way, and we kind of try to keep men and women not apart, but so that it's safe. It's a really safe environment to open yourself spiritually and open your heart.
That's beautiful. And you mentioned something that is highly impactful from my studies of Gurudev, that he had a great love for Divine Mother, and this sense of devotion to the feminine aspect was quite strong throughout his life. And I'm wondering, in your own life, beside your own mother, who sounds incredibly wise and loving, were there other female role models for you that helped you come into the path of spirituality and support you on your path?
Yes, and thinking about that, the person who comes top of the list to mind is Bambi Merriweather, who was the hostess and brought Baba to Santa Barbara the first time and brought him to California. And she was hosting him. And without her, I think my life would be completely different, because somehow I would have maybe come to Kriya Yoga. But I count her as my point in and my, mother divine, because she brought Hariharananda. She had so much love for him and so much devotion. And two of them loved each other so much that as somebody new coming onto this path in this organization, she was an excellent model for how to be around the guru, how to behave, how to honor him, how to trust him, how to love him, how to be joyful with him and cheerful. And so that was an perfect, wonderful role model. And she was so enthusiastic. You cannot believe her enthusiasm. It was just infectious. And when I think of me as a leader, I just am not as infectious. I am not built that way, but she was totally infectious. And so we had a big group, and there was always a lot of life going on. And she was... she brought us right in. So soon we were having meditations at her house. And when she was away, somebody else, I'd run the meditations. And suddenly we're like right in the throes of this, not really knowing what's going on. But she got us all active. And that lasted we still have a center in my home. So it really, she was the mentor. And it was an amazing connection that I still love. And so then she moved and kind of dropped out of Kriya a little bit. But during the pandemic, we started a Zoom meditation, kind of general meditation. And she started coming to that from San Diego. So it was really beautiful that a lot of the old students that had been initiated in Santa Barbara touched base and came back in through the Zoom. And so we still meet. She came in last Thursday, actually.
Oh, that's such a blessing. And she really resonated with your mother as far as that incredible anchoring in living a life of loving seva. And she was an example of that. And I agree with you. I've also been blessed with women like yourself who have helped me feel very comfortable within the organization and helped me to understand how to behave, because it is a very precious protocol. And once you know, then you know. But before that, we don't know. So it's been a real blessing to have all the mothers. And with that, Lucy Ma, is there any particular singular practice that you absolutely could not do without?
Well, I think the meditation, daily meditation, regular meditation is critical. As far as a little practice, Hariharananda always told us to watch every breath. So that's a big practice, and that goes to 24/7. And it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty simple. We forget, of course, but that's the practice I think is the foundation. So if we can watch every breath, what that means is that we're watching God. We're observing and being the witness to that connection with God in every breath, which is that's the way that we're going to realize God, is to watch every breath, watch all the time.
It's presence. It's presence, isn't it?
Yeah, just being present. And when you kind of dive down into it, that's how you get to the moment, the living in the present moment. And when you're not thinking about the breath, and then you come back to it, you think, where was I? And then you weren't in the moment, you were somewhere else, and then you can breathe and you're in the moment, and that's where you can act and love and be really present. So
it's very powerful. And over time, you have progressed to being a Yogacharya, which is a teacher who initiates new people into the path of Kriya Yoga. How has your personal practice changed over time to the present?
I've shifted from a lot of seva, more seva, and working more for the organization and kind of focusing on that level, to where now I am studying more and I'm spending more time in retreat and in meditation, and just to kind of exploring how to go deeper and how to go deeper, where earlier I was not focusing on that level. I was focusing on organizing and participating.
Excellent. And how might our listeners be able to put these principles and practices into their life today?
I think the most important thing, if you want to progress or even get on or be on the spiritual path, is to find something that really works for you. And this is we're on the Joy podcast, right? Find something that brings you joy and that you will actually do, and do that practice. Whether it's a prayer, if you are a Kriyavan, then do your Kriya practice and do it with love, and do everything with love. But pick something and stick with it. That's the only way you're really going to really progress, is if you pick something that you love and know works and you have faith in, and then you stay with it.
Oh, that's absolutely spot on. I agree with you 100%. And Lucy, given that, can you tell us how you've been able to balance your spiritual practice with everyday responsibilities and relationships? I know that you have a grown son and a couple grandsons, and you still, although you're retired, you still do have a couple of clients with bookkeeping and a busy life. How have you been able to balance and maybe say a word or two in the progression through your life? Because we've had different workloads at different times. So just tell us.
Okay. When I first started, I was actually like a little afraid that I was going to go too fast, too far too fast. It was too powerful of a technique. So I kind of went a little bit more slowly and would, not go too slow, but like maybe every other day or maybe not twice a day, just because I was afraid it was so powerful. And so as life progressed, then I was like, no, this really works. Let's do more, and practice regularly, twice a day. That's fine. And make sure every day happens and really dedicate more time and energy to it. I think the balancing the life and practice is to build in that what your spiritual life is about is your values and practices and values, and live your life with the spiritual values and high values of love and compassion and kindness, just the things that truthfulness that are all across the board. All religions expect this of us. And so if we remember that the way we should walk through the world is our spiritual practice, then yes, there's time we spend on the cushion, but then everything that we do is part of our spiritual life, just like every breath. But make sure that you understand and have your life structured so that everything is part of your spiritual life. Like teaching the children, we want to share with them values and model the kind of living that we want for them. When we're in the workplace, we want to model and be in the workplace. One story I thought of for this podcast was that I had a job once. It was a wonderful job. I loved the job. I was working in the public sector in the Arts Commission. It was really great. But I had, there was a missing the piece that there was no God in the workplace. I had worked with people that were more worldly. And I just got to where I had a longing to have God in the workplace as well as everywhere else in my life. And so I ended up changing jobs and finding something that was more conducive to my everyday values, big picture. And so make choices like that keep you on the path and keep you able to move forward. I know some people have, I was a single mom, so I had my own challenges, but I can't imagine a mom with a husband and somebody that's has husband, 4 kids, job, all these things. And I have no advice for you except, live your values and do your best.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, because I was going to ask you what advice you might give to women just beginning to explore spirituality. And that certainly answered it, not only for them, but for all of us, that those were gems of wisdom that hold true, I feel, in each day of our lives. So thank you for that. And my final question to you, Ma, before we let you go, is what brings you the most joy on your path today?
I think what really brings me joy is recognizing those little bits of grace when they're called synchronicities, or when you are present and you see the beautiful tree or the flower and you stop and you recognize it. That brings me joy. I'm not a giddy sort of person, but that brings me great joy of having the sense of, oh yes, I'm not here alone. There is beauty all around me and I'm a part of it. Or when you lose your purse in traveling and you go back and you find it. And I think, oh, this is grace beyond measure when that can happen. Or the phone breaks and you have insurance and you think, this is the best. And so that's the kind of joy that I'm really loving. I do love time with my family and friends, though, so I don't want to exclude that in case I would lose it ever. So.
Well, and they are a direct expression of God's presence. So why wouldn't we love every moment with everyone? Well, that is just so beautiful. And I can see that glow around you all the time, Lucy Ma. You truly walk the walk and talk the talk in a sincere manner. And we certainly appreciate you and are so blessed to have you as one of our Yogacharyas in Korea. And we really are so appreciative of the inspiration that was quite refreshing today for all of us. And we hope and pray that your journey ahead will help you to continue to live in joy. So thank you. Thank you, Ma.
Do we have a few minutes? I'm here. Sure. I want to say that I'm here at Hariharananda's ashram in Homestead, Florida, outside of Miami. And this was the home that he built. And we're in the meditation hall, and his little statue is behind us. But I welcome everybody to come and spend time here. You do not have to be initiated to come, but you are welcome always to Gurudev's home. So look it up and come down and spend some time in retreat. You'll really benefit from that.
Om, om, om. That is such a blessing. And I'm sad I'm not there with you, but I can feel it all the way here. So I'm there. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We are so grateful that you are able to join us here for Women of Kriya Yoga, where we are sharing wisdom, nurturing joy, and living in love. May great blessings be yours on this day and every day. And as Lucy Ma so beautifully reminded us, in every breath. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jai Guru. Om, om, om.
She dreamt this dream, the fog was deaf and blinding, and she knew that she was living with the darkness, and the pathway back was narrow and so steep. Still the moon was coming out to lead her home. In the beginning there was no one there to guide her, and she struggled in the blood and bone alone. And she really couldn't feel that she was falling. Still she heard a song of longing call her down. Then the friend she didn't know came out to greet her. He spoke to her as if she were alive, and he sat her down and offered her some supper, and she felt the fear of hope moving inside. Still the battle fought inside raged full and honest, and exhausted from the storm, she faltered down. On her knees, she humbly asked someone to show her any goodness there was left inside the world. Teacher came and showed her where the truth was, and the truth was sitting there inside the scars. And she knew the truth was something only searched for when love does separate you from your stars. So she sits down for a lifetime cloaked in silence, to continue on the journey to the core, and to find the perfect love and truth inside her, so to awaken from this dream forevermore.
This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Ministry of Kriya Yoga International. You can learn more about the ministry at our website, womensministryofkriya.org. Kriya Yoga is a powerful meditation practice that awakens constant communion with the divine through the science of the breath. Handed down from teacher to student in an unbroken lineage of enlightened masters, it transforms body, mind, and heart, helping us be calmly active and actively calm. Today, this living tradition welcomes seekers everywhere through the guidance of Paramahamsa Yogananda, the principal disciple of the great master Paramahamsa Hariharananda. To learn more about Kriya Yoga, please visit kriya.org.